What's up, everybody? Here we are again at the Energy is Love podcast. Third or fourth week of the podcast. I'm not quite sure. We're almost coming up on a month and everything's going beautifully well. I love doing it. Everything about this experience has been amazing. I love the people that I'm getting to meet. My favorite part is we've got listeners in Hungary, Romania, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Russia, New Zealand, Colombia, Canada. All these different countries are starting to pop up where people are tuning in and listening and downloading the episodes. And that's incredible. I absolutely love that aspect of it. So thank you, everybody out there. That listener out there in Hungary, thank you. That guy in New Zealand, I appreciate it. Colombia, I sure hope you understand what I'm saying because I don't speak Spanish, but thank you for listening. We have to thank our sponsors for the podcast, Crystal Water Float Spa located in Twilla, Utah. Go online and find them, crystalwaterfloat.com. Go on Facebook and find them. Their Facebook is Crystal Water Float Spa. Crawl in that tank of salt water, lay back and relax. Heal your mind, your body, your spirit, your soul. Spiritually, it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me, and I love that I get to float. And I love that I get a float at Crystal Water Float Spa. So go check him out. We also got to thank the Bryman. The Bryman's been sponsoring small businesses for the past 10 years, and the podcast wouldn't be what it is today without the Bryman. Become a sponsor of the show. Contact us, email us at energyislovepodcast@gmail.com or go online to our Facebook page, Energy is Love Podcast. Let us know. We want to help. We want to get your message out. We want to spread the word that you've got to share. We want to expand everybody's mind and everybody's experiences. So come be a sponsor of the show. Contact us and find out more information. If you want to donate money to the podcast, we have a GoFundMe set up. You can either go to GoFundMe.com, search us out, or just go to our Facebook page where we've got it linked. Next month, we're going to be devoting an entire episode to your questions. So if you've been listening and enjoying the podcast, and maybe some things have been kind of percolating in the back of your mind, now's the time to reach out. Contact us. Let us know what questions you have. Go online to our Facebook page and message us. Or if you want to email us those questions, you can do that as well. I think my wife's actually going to sit down with me for that episode, and we'll talk a little bit about our journey and our experience and the way that we work with energy. We're professional intuitive energy practitioners, and so now's your chance to get some of those energy-related, spirituality-related, floating-related questions out there, and my wife and I'll sit down and answer all of them, and that'll be a really fun episode. I'm looking forward to that. We love doing the Energy is Love podcast. We love our listeners. We love the fact that we're all across the globe now. Whatever episode's coming up, you guys are going to enjoy it. I guarantee it. The podcast for what? The universe. On this episode of the Energy is Love podcast, I had the wonderful, wonderful opportunity of sitting down with Kamille Bauer and her daughter Niska. Kamille is the wife of Clint Bauer. Clint is somebody that I've known pretty much my entire life. I grew up with him. Clint and I used to play ball together and ride bikes together and get into mischief and trouble together. And Clint passed away from cancer last year. It was a really difficult time, obviously, not just for me, but for everybody that knew Clint. He was an amazing man, and he was one of those guys that everybody loved and everybody liked. It was super interesting watching the journey and the experience of Clint and his family going through cancer. And that's why I wanted Kamille to come on the show so she could talk about that experience and share some of the insight of actually kind of being in the trenches of everything that they had to endure and go through. So Kamille sat down and she shared it all. She talked about everything that they kind of had to experience and the good and the bad and the ugly of cancer and that kind of life-changing, life-altering experience. And that's why I wanted her on the show, because she's an amazing person, an incredibly strong woman to kind of persevere and go through what she went through. And they didn't just survive it, they excelled at the experience of living with cancer and turning it into such a positive. And she's still doing that today, even after Clint's passing. Kamille's a superstar, and she's amazing. And Clint's an amazing man as well. So I loved the opportunity, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I absolutely positively enjoyed doing it. So here we go with the Energy is Love podcast featuring Kamille Bauer and her beautiful daughter, Niska.
You're listening to the Energy is Love podcast.
Energy is Love.
The Energy is the Love podcast.
The Energy is Love podcast.
Energy is Love.
The Energy is Love podcast.
The podcast for the universe.
The Energy is Love podcast.
What's up, everybody? It's the Energy is Love podcast, and I'm incredibly blessed and excited for today's episode. I have two special people sitting down in front of me. It's Kamille Bauer and her daughter, Niska. Kamille, go ahead and introduce yourself. I just said your name, but go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, so I am a 33-year-old mama to three amazing kids and live in Utah and have an amazing story to tell and share.
Yes. And that's why you're on the podcast. Well, you're on the podcast because you're awesome and you're a friend and everything like that. But you do have a good story to share. And we're going to get into all of it. And Niska, go ahead and just say something. I don't care what you say. Just throw something out there so at least listeners know you're on the podcast. So Niska's sitting down with her mom for the podcast, and she may jump in periodically here and there. But I know Kamille through her husband. Her husband's Clint Bauer. And I grew up with Clint in Grantsville. I've known Clint I'm 35, and I was thinking about this morning, and I think he moved to Grantsville
when he was 8.
So I was thinking it was like first grade or something like that. So 28 years, and Clint and I grew up really close to each other. We lived about a block away from each other. And so we were really, really good friends all through childhood and into our teenage and high school years and things like that. And obviously that's how I know you, is through your amazing husband.
He was a rock star.
So for listeners out there, Clint Bauer passed away last year from cancer after having, I never could remember the exact type of cancer that he had. I know that it's
chondrosarcoma. So it's like a tumorous rare bone cancer.
Yeah. And how long did he have it for? It was like 10 or 11 years?
Yeah, he had it when he was 19 and then went 11 years, and then it came back in December of 2011.
In 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Was it kind of dormant for...
Yep. Like you get your 5 years, yay, you made it, you beat cancer, and then every couple years we went back, and then he just kind of wasn't feeling good. So, and went to testing, and then December of 2011 was told that it had returned with a vengeance. So.
Yeah. And that was in 2011. And then, like I said, he passed away last year in 2015.
September 28th. So 2 days before he would have turned 35.
So I remember, and I'll talk a lot about Clint, obviously, because he was a really important part for me in my life. And like I said, we grew up together. I remember playing over at his house all the time. When we were like in middle school, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, it wasn't uncommon to just walk home from the school and stop at Clint's house and sit there and hang out and play and ride bikes and climb trees and chase lizards and jump on the trampoline and all sorts of different fun things. But when did you meet Clint? How old were you?
I was 18.
You were 18 when you met him?
Just graduated high school.
How much older is he than you?
2 years.
2 years?
Yep.
And how did you guys meet?
So it was a summer job. So actually his cancer came for the first round when he was 19 and serving an LDS mission in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
Yeah, I remember when he came home, like I was at a gas station just pumping gas in town in Grantsville, minding my own business, completely oblivious. And the next thing I know, Clint pulls up and jumps out of his truck. And I'm like,
what the?
What's going on, man? It's good to see you. So that was surprising for me, but.
Yeah, so he had major surgery. So they removed his whole right hip crest and reconstructed all the muscles. And then 6 months out of rehab is when he got his first job, which was spraying lawns, fertilizing lawns, and I scheduled appointments. So that's how we met. I was like, what? He's so cute. And his bosses were my bosses, so I was like, oh my gosh, you need to tell Clint that he needs to ask me on a date.
Yeah.
And they told the wrong Clint, who was like single for a reason. And I was like, what? No. And
did the wrong Clint ask you out?
No, I was like, what? No, tell him no. I'm not going out with him. And then, so then they told Clint, and he stood nervously talking to me at my car for like 5 minutes. And I finally was like, do you want my number? He's like, yeah. So then that was June 21st. And then June 22nd was our first date in 2001.
In 2001. You remember the dates?
Yeah.
See, I love that about women. My wife's like that. She'll remember very specific stuff, and then she'll ask me about it. And I'm like, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. How soon after that did you guys get married?
So we were engaged that following November 2nd, and then married the following June 7th, 2002.
Yeah.
Wait, you
So-
met in July?
June.
And then I remember when you guys got married, and I remember when Niska was born. She's your oldest.
Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 12.
12. I remember when you were born. I remember you guys lived like in a condo or in a townhome or something like that.
I think what's important to remember too is when we first met, like instantly, like we fell hard for each other, you know, like there's this song, this country song that's like, I've known you just a week or two, but baby, I'm so into you by Martina McBride. And I remember singing that to him, like literally after we had only known each other a week or two.
Really?
Like saying, I love you already, you know, like it just was like air, you know, easy to breathe and pee in my pod.
And then you guys get married and you have kids and you kind of progress through life and everything like that. And obviously you knew when you guys met that he had cancer.
Yeah, for sure.
But it wasn't.
Or had it. So it was pretty much, it was gone.
Yeah.
You know, or they hope, you know, you go to all those appointments, the 3-month, you know, you keep doing your checkups and signs of it was that they had removed it and got it all because this kind of cancer, you just have to cut out. Like they just had to go in and get the contaminated bone and take it out. You know, it's just so rare. There's not a lot of research as to how to prevent it or, you know, chemo, you know, standard chemo didn't work. So
just surgery, huh?
Yeah. So then he dealt with a lot of pain, obviously, from, if you know, imagine having your right hip crest gone. And I mean, he had a scholarship for baseball to college and had to lose that. And, you know, I think we came from the standpoint of, you know, I know after we had met, he's like, oh, I know why I had cancer because I met you. And I would have done it 100 times over if I knew I get you in the end, you know? So yeah. And then we just went through the motions of life. You know, he's working full time, going to school full time, having little babies, thinking life's hard, you know, wishing, you know, you knew what to make for dinner that night, you know, like
all the regular stresses,
all the good old
life.
Days where you're like, oh man, wish I had a hard life like that now.
Yeah. And see, because this is the cool thing through that whole, not just through your guys' life and through your marriage and everything like that, but when the cancer came back, you guys did a really wonderful job, and you specifically did a really wonderful job of kind of sharing it with everybody. You went online and you would post things all the time on Facebook, and it's Clint the Cancer Warrior. Is that the Facebook page, right?
Yeah, it's ClintTheCancerWarrior.com is his website, and Clint the Cancer Warrior Family now is the Facebook.
Yeah.
For him.
And that was a really, I don't even know how to describe it, Kamille, because it was such a, at times it was really shitty. Do you know what I mean? Obviously,
definitely.
Granted for you, but then for people on the outside, it was really challenging and really difficult. But it was really amazing kind of to watch the process of everything that you guys would go through and everything that you would experience. And
yeah, originally, you know, my thought process behind starting the social media for him was just because so many people cared about and loved him and our family. And it was just like, you know, you get home from appointments and you're like, oh, you know, how many times do you want to text out the same information? Or, you know, do people really want to call and bug you, but they don't, but they really want to know, you know, how he's doing. And so it was like, okay, I'm just going to start a Facebook for you, you know, like you're a rock star. I'll be your fan club president and we will, you know, put it out there and do updates and, you know, just a way to get the mass information out. And that's originally how it started.
was he kind of opposed to it initially?
Oh, no.
He was okay with it?
He was the least, he always said, I'm the least dramatic, most dramatic person you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
Like he so humble and didn't need the spotlight or want the spotlight in any way, but knew that it was a good thing to be able to, okay, we need to let people know because you're inundated with that love from so many, but you know, you're also drained and burned out and you don't want to rehash the same thing over and over. So that's how it started. And then it slowly just snowballed into, you know, people from all over the world just catching on and watching him live his beautiful life in spite of surgery after bad news after bad news. And then, you know, I remember a couple years in, we just looked at each other and we're just like, you know what? People really want to know how we make it through, you know, we're telling them.
Yeah.
You know, we're boldly declaring like our faith and what gets us through. And, you know, I know so many times it's, oh, you don't talk about religion, you don't talk about politics, you know, like you just stay Switzerland, you know, you stay neutral, you don't go there. And but we went there, you know, like it was like, okay, you want to know what helps our life? This is what it is. And I think the beauty and the pain and just the amazing man he was and the courage he had, and it was an honor for me to be able to share that and display that and hopefully adequately describe in some small way what a hero he was.
Yeah, he was really an amazing guy. Like Clint was one of those kind of guys that it seemed like everybody liked. Do you know what I mean? He got along well with everybody. He was never kind of
not a mean bone in his body.
No, not in the slightest.
No.
I can think of just a couple of times when I saw him get like angry or upset, or you know, a lot of times it was because somebody had kind of annoyed him or bugged him or teased him or pushed him finally to that breaking point. But even in that space, it wasn't like, you know, he never got upset. He was just so nice, and everybody liked him. Very
even keeled, except sometimes he'd go the Hulk. You know, he'd be like, "Whoa, Daddy, you need to clean the living room. He's throwing stuff around."
Do you remember that monkey we got for him?
What monkey?
The sock monkey.
Oh, now tell me about it.
You know, it had that saying on it.
Oh yeah, it's the damn it doll. You could throw it around and hit it.
Take all your frustration out with it.
Well, yeah, the kids gave him that. They're like, "Here you go, Dad." That was funny. Yeah.
I loved when I got the opportunity to sit down and talk with him, because we kept in touch over the years. And I mean, it's like anything else when you grow up and you move on with life from, you know, not just from high school, but kind of from your youth and everything like that. And I always kept in touch with Clint, and we would connect every so often. And like anything else, relationships and bonds take time and energy, and you have to obviously devote that time and energy into those things. And him and I spent more time together, obviously, towards the end of his life when cancer came back, and it was really kind of came back with a vengeance, like you said. Like, it, you know, that's when him and I really started to kind of spend more time together. And even then, we didn't spend that much time together. It was every few months, it seemed like we would hook up, and whether we went to lunch or go to a movie or something like that. But I really loved those days, and I really loved those opportunities. And it was so neat for me to just get to spend time with them and hang out with them. I really liked the fact that, because there's a certain amount of cancer defined his life to a certain extent, but that was just such a small aspect of it. Do you know what I mean? That's one side of the coin. And the other side is, obviously, cancer didn't define anything for him. It wasn't something that he kind of, I think, or I believe, you know, it wasn't something that I don't think he ever let it get to him, even in the really probably hardest times and the hardest moments. But obviously you'd be able to speak better to that.
I mean, I think you can look from the outside and go, man, they had it. Well, they had some magical, everything was good, even though it was bad. But I mean, realistically, honestly, there were bad days, you know, and our goal was that we would have more good days than bad days. And I think having, you know, when our third baby, so we have 3 kids together. Now they're 12, 9, and 5. But when the baby was 8 months old, that's when we found out his cancer came back. And we just, you know, especially me as the mom, was like, oh my gosh, how can you deal with all of this plus a new baby? Like, it doesn't make sense, you know, like why would God think I could handle that, you know? And then in the preceding months and years, Wyatt, is our little boy who was then 8 months, you know, he grew into being the biggest gift of our life, to be able to have because Clint didn't work because he had 11 surgeries over the ending, the last, 4 years in and out of the hospital. So he was there every day with the baby, you know, and was just, kids have a magical way to help you live in the moment.
Yes. And
forget about the problems. And that's what happened, you know, with Wyatt. And he completely helped us transform our worries into, you know what, live in the moment and go build Hot Wheel tracks and, you know, play and on those days where we just felt like, you know what, we're depressed. We just don't want to get out of bed. This is miserable and hard. You have this cute little face shining at you that gets you out of bed and gets you going.
Just wants to play.
Yeah. And Clint and him had a really special relationship. And, even to this day, Wyatt still, who's 5, just turned 5 in January, talks about him on a daily basis. And just a couple weeks ago, well, maybe it's last week, he said, he just started to cry and said, Daddy didn't make my birthday. Daddy wasn't at my birthday, and I was like, hey, you know what? He was there. We just couldn't see him. So I think, when you are having hard times, you have a choice, and having our amazing kids really helped us to choose to not ruin the moments we had now with what could happen in the future. And we got good at that. It wasn't just overnight, but we got really good at making the most of the moments that we had gifted in front of us.
Yeah.
And Clint would say, hey, I'm not going anywhere today, and I'm not going anywhere tomorrow. So let's have fun.
Yeah.
And we did. We had a lot of fun.
See, and that's the other thing too, is like, I remember coming and sitting and visiting with him in the hospital, and him and I, not just that instance or that time, but we would have these really kind of profound, amazing conversations, and we came at it from a different point of view and a different perspective. Like my whole spiritual journey, awakening, blah, 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 I don't care what you call it, happened probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And in conjunction with that, I would have a whole bunch of beliefs of my own that kind of shifted and changed. And I grew up LDS in the sense of I was baptized, but it was more or less just because that's what you did in Grantsville, in the small town. You go to church, and that's kind of just the society and the culture there. But I was never really active LDS. I didn't go on a mission. I didn't have any connection really to not just that religion, but religion is, in a whole. And then I came to spirituality and started to really kind of expand the way that I thought about things and the way that I felt about things, and then had some experiences, and then getting the opportunity to sit down and talk with Clint, who had a very, very strong belief and conviction and faith in, God and the church and the teachings, and being able to kind of meet on this playing field where we could come at a perspective. I would express something to him. I would describe something to him, and he'd be like, yeah, that's totally, I believe and feel the exact same thing. We're just calling it slightly different stuff. And I loved that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's so many things that you just got done talking about. So you talk about mindfulness and just really being present in the moment. And that is such a challenging thing for people to do, but it's such an important thing for people to do. And that's a big thing when it comes to the realm of like spirituality and all that kind of crap, where it's mindfulness and it is being present, and it's not worrying about the future or worrying about the past. It's really just being in the moment and in the now.
And I think if you're being true to yourself, and what's meant to be will come your way. And that depletes and diffuses all worry and fear, even now to this day for me.
Yeah. So talk to me some more about some of those. I mean, obviously there's challenge after challenge after challenge, but I think you probably got to a certain point where those challenges not just got easier and easier, but you kind of just, it's like you would step outside of them and like, there's all those challenges and frustrations and all the things that we have to deal with in relation to all of this, but we're really all about life and really all about the moment and all about love. Yeah.
So, anybody who's dealt with a cancer or some type of disease, it's a roller coaster, like we would put on Ozzy Crazy Train, Crazy Train, and rock out, because that's, you can't refund your ticket. I mean, that's for real. Like, it was crazy. And it's just, at first it was, you just stayed focused on the next 3 months. You had surgery, and then you waited 3 months, and it was okay. And the closer it got, the more you wanted to throw up, the more you wanted to, everything hinged on this date. The happiness, your future, everything hinged on results day.
Yeah.
So we'd go in and you'd get knocked down, and you're like, dang it, and then you'd have surgery, and then you'd wait 3 months. And, it was this vicious cycle. And it was we can be happy when cancer's gone. When cancer's gone, then, we were so focused on getting rid of it that we had to just gradually, through our faith, just giving it up to God and getting to that point where it was like, okay, if it's not meant to get better, our life has to improve. Like, we cannot sit here and be miserable. And so I think that defining, probably, in the beginning it was hard, but over the course of the 4 years, it got easier to deal with it. And I think a major epiphany was, oh my gosh, you can have cancer and be happy.
Yeah.
The two can live, the two can coexist, the two need to coexist, and we couldn't wait for this perfect day. I love, one of the apostles has a talk, and it's Dieter Uchtdorf, who's mine and Niska's favorite, and he said, Dieter F. Uchtdorf. Yep, he's I think the first president of the Mormon Church. Yeah. And he said, why waste your time looking for fabulous roses and forget to look around you at the beautiful forget-me-nots? Mm-hmm. And they're all around you. And once our focus shifted and really absorbed that, it was like, oh my gosh, there is, today is horrible, but it is not. The sun is shining. Our babies are healthy. Mm-hmm. We have an amazing support system. I mean, somebody always has it worse than you have it.
Yeah.
And so many people get so self-involved and think that life is so hard. But when you actually look outside yourself and realize that, you know what, everybody has challenges, and your choice is how to deal with them. So March of 2014 was a defining moment. We, went in, and the cancer had metastasized to his lungs. And then they said you have 6 months to a year left. And, we came home and just sat there and laid by each other on the bed and just bawled, because I think it was like that. You have hope and you have faith, and it's like, oh, I believe miracles happen every day. And, to just finally just get slapped and, beat down to where you actually hear that. It was horrendous. And, I'm all about, we've always been an open book, I think, as far as giving our emotions and what's going on, and really trying to express that. And so we knew our kids were at school and they were coming home that day, and we had to tell them, and we did. We sat them down, and it was heart-wrenching. But, I prayed harder than I ever prayed before, and Clint couldn't say anything, but I was able to tell them, this is the news we got, but, we have faith and we believe and we know that even if Daddy did leave, we're going to be with him forever. Yeah. We're going to see him again, and be able to bear my testimony and share my belief with them that, it literally is the refiner's fire. Literally is like all the small crap falls away and you grab hold with white knuckles the belief that you have when you go through darkness.
Yeah, that faith. Can you think of a time, and I'm sure that you can, but can you think of times where that belief and that faith that you had in those greater and grander things, you really, really questioned it, and you were really, really challenged in that space?
Yeah, definitely. I think, it's your natural thought process, the natural man who, when things don't go your way, why is God cursing me? Yeah. What did I do to deserve this? Yeah. This isn't right. I think that's everybody's natural way. You think if life's going good, it's easy to believe in somebody who's, this loving being who's giving you all these great things. But yeah, no, it was definitely a challenge to be like, what? Especially Clint. Like, Clint was the one who would give you his shirt off his back. He would go out of his way to do anything for anybody. Yeah. And it was so maddening to be like, oh my gosh, like, why him? There's murderers. There's crazy drug addicts. There's, really bad people in the world that should get something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Not even, I don't wish it on my worst enemy, but it was maddening, you know, and we did question our faith. But I think as as we said, we went through the motions of faith. Yeah, we say our prayers, we would attend church, and I mean, we were never not active in our faith. But when it came down to it, I remember, and it just kept getting worse. We just sat down and we looked at each other and we're like, okay, we're doing this. We're going all in. We're putting it, if there is a miracle or if there's anything we're worthy of, we're doing it all.
Yeah.
And that was, about 1.5 years, 2 years before he passed. It was just like, okay, Bauer's never missed church. Even coming home from hospice, the Bauer man went to church.
Yeah.
I mean, on oxygen, in a wheelchair, sweating bullets, we clung to our faith. And you know what? Life got worse. But you know what? The quality of our life got better.
Did it?
And everything, all the stress and the worry seemed to lessen. And I know as we put our faith in Jesus Christ and gave our trials and our grief up to him,
mm-hmm.
then it became easier to bear. And, I love that scripture, take my yoke upon you and learn of me, because I am meek and lowly in heart, and I will give you rest. And that's what he did. Those oxen that yoke themselves together, they get strength beyond their own capacity. And that's what Jesus Christ does for all. And that's what he did for us. And indescribably worked. It permeated our lives and helped lift our hearts and our burdens and give us the amazing gift to be able to savor the little blessed seconds we had together and not feel the weight of the world crashing down on us. And, it wasn't just like this big epiphany that life, I said a prayer and now it's amazing, but it was like a gradual, like the sun rising,
Mm-hmm.
It's dark, but as we put those little steps of faith, it made it easier, and soon you knew it was a bright day.
See, I think that when it comes to, and that's the other thing too, is I don't care what people call it. I don't care what people connect with or resonate with. For me, it's all the exact same thing. That's why it's the Energy is Love podcast, because it's just love. And that's what we all stem from, and that's the source of all stuff. But I think when it comes to your faith and your belief and those, the faith and the belief in something higher and greater and grander than yourself, and the ways that you stay connected and the ways that you kind of practice that faith, I think so much of it is merely that, a practice, and it really is something that you just have to keep practicing at. Do you find that, probably still even today, where it's challenge and it's hard?
It is. I find if I, those days those weeks I don't go to church, those weeks I don't study, the Bible or the Book of Mormon, if I don't pray, something's a little off. It's just a little bit harder. Literally like last week, I was like, why am I crying? I'm sad. This is hard. How could I have made it this far? Like here I am, a single mom now with 3 little kids who depend on me for being their barometer for everything. When mama ain't happy, nobody's happy.
Yeah.
And then I sat there after they all went to bed and was just like, what? I just feel like sometimes like I'm walking, following what I believe, following the commandments and living in the light of Christ keeps me walking on the dry ground through the Red Sea.
Yeah.
And the more I stray away from that, I can feel the waters getting closer, and that despair and the weight of the gravity of our situation is real. It's hard. And when I'm off balance, when I'm not, centered in rounding out my spirituality as well as working out, physical, when I'm not balanced there, then I find it's really easy for me to get depressed, you know, and think, oh man, my life is hard, you know, like, well, how can I do this, you know? But as I turn my focus to practicing, like you said, getting better, practicing in the belief that, you know, I have a purpose here that it helps make it easier when I do those things I know that help keep me in balance.
Yeah. When I say in spirituality, like we talked a little bit, and like I'm a crazy hippie guy that believes all these really out there, bizarro, strange things and stuff like that. But it's really simple, small stuff. But in that realm of spirituality and things like that, there's some people, or there's some beliefs, or some, I guess, I don't even know if beliefs necessarily. Some people hold them as beliefs, but there's some thoughts and some kind of, I'm not even describing it that well. There's some beliefs out there that before we come to this planet, before we come to this life, that we sit down and we write our book of life, or we agree to certain things that we're going to come and experience in this life. And like I said, I'm not doing an adequate job describing that, but you get the idea, the general
100%.
sense.
Yes. We signed up for our trials before we came.
Yeah. Do you think that, like, what were the conversations that you and Clint would have concerning kind of why this was the way that it was, and what was the purpose and the point behind all of this?
At first, you know, the first go around, it was really easy for us to be like, boom, we know why I had cancer. Because look, our love story.
Yeah.
It's perfection, you know, I mean, and then when it came back, we kept going, okay, what do we need to learn? What do we got to learn? All right, okay, what have we not learned yet? You know, like every time, you know, the years drag on, we're like, holy freak, you know, like, give us a sign here, you know, and then I think we had to get to the point of not give it all up to God, not thy will, but not our will, but thine be done. Uh-huh. And, yeah, and Clint was the biggest one. I remember driving down the road one day, and Wyatt, who was then 4, said, you know, Dad, why do you have cancer? You know, and Clint thought about it for a sec, and he goes, well, because I told Heavenly Father I would before I came to earth. And you hear Wyatt, you know, sit there and marinate for a second, and then he goes, I would have said no.
It's like, Dad, you should have rethought this one.
Yeah. And so then from the front seat, you know, I just started laughing, and I'm like, yeah, Daddy, I would have said no. And, but that was Clint's mission, you know, was to tell people that, you know, we lived before we came here. We agreed, you know, not you're going to go to the grocery store on this day and you're going to, no, but we agreed that we'd come down here and it wasn't going to be perfect. It wasn't going to be easy. And Clint said, you know, I knew God asked me if I would do this, and I told him I would. And, you know, he made it through with flying colors.
Yes, he did. I think one of the neat things that I would see, because he, through that whole experience, not just my friendship with Clint, like I would sit back and kind of reminisce and ponder and think about the things that, you know, all the good times and all the fun things that we did as kids and as growing up and things like that. I mean, I remember he had his Camaro when we were in high school, and there was one time that he let me take it out and drive it. And, I mean, there's just tons and tons and tons. We could sit here and do a whole nother podcast all about the stories from my childhood, but we won't. But I would think about all of these things, and I would think about the ways that he influenced my life. Because at the time when you're growing up and when you're just a kid and when you're a teenager, obviously you're not aware of any of that. But there were a lot of things that I gained from being friends with Clint and from having him in my life. And then obviously, you know, it continued throughout my whole life and my friendship with him and onwards into, because sitting there and watching your guys' journey, you know, I'd be sitting back at home and get on Facebook on my phone, and I would sit there and see all the things that he was going through and all the challenges. And you did a beautiful job of, you know, not just painting the beauty behind all of it, but also the shit and the difficult stuff and the things that were really kind of challenging.
The ugliness of cancer.
And I loved that. I mean, there were times where I would talk to my wife or I would show her something and be like, oh my gosh, like it was hard to kind of sit there and read through that post or watch that video or something like that. And I know that because I talked to all of my friends and all the people that we grew up with together, because that was kind of the cool thing too, is, I mean, it is a cool thing, is growing up in this small town community that I did, I'm still really close with a lot of those people that I grew up with. And they were all still really close with Clint, and we all still kind of keep in touch and everything. And he influenced and affected so many people and in so many different ways. And it's those little subtle moments where like it would be a quiet moment within my own self and my own space and my own thought process. And it wasn't just sitting back and thinking, like you've talked about, like the problems and the worries of everyday life obviously are incredibly insignificant on the grand scheme of things. Mm-hmm. But it really helped solidify the faith that I had in what I believe in. And my guess is that he had that effect on hundreds and thousands of people that came across your guys' stuff and the people that you would meet. And that was the other thing I wanted to talk to you about. I mean, it's kind of a, I guess, icing on the cake. I don't know how you guys view it or how you think of it. The fact is you guys got to go do a bunch of really cool stuff. Like you guys took trip after trip and you got to go experience all these cool things and do all of this cool stuff. And I'm sure that you didn't take that for granted in any way, shape, or form. But that was also something that was, tell me about that, like some of the cool stuff that you guys got to do.
Yeah. So I think we were, cancer is super ugly, but it also, if you choose to let it, it's a gift. Mm-hmm. And we opened that gift over and over again because we savored the moments. And, I had a friend of mine that her husband left for work a week before Christmas and got in a car accident and died.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, I don't know what's easier. I don't know what's easier, losing someone like that or watching somebody slowly die over the course of years.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer to that. But what I do know is that going through what we did, we were able to look and go, oh, look at all the memories we made. And you know what? If, everybody's terminal. That's what Clint would say. Everybody's terminal. Yeah. There's no expiration date on the bottom of my foot. And we lived big, like Tim McGraw, live like you're dying. I mean, everybody should. And I think we just took the opportunity to live life exactly how you should.
Yeah.
Live it like you're going out in style, I mean, you're not going to go blow a bunch of money, but you got to be responsible. There has to be a balance, but it was just like, no. I mean, we went on countless vacations. Niska, what was your favorite?
Probably when we went to Maui.
Maui?
Maui.
Hawaii is very special to our hearts. So we took the kids to Hawaii several times, and Jamaica and Haiti and Disney World, Disneyland. I coined the phrase diarrhea day at school, like, oh, really? You have diarrhea? Guess you can't go to school today. We'll have to party. Like that was our get out of school free card was, that was our code word for fun was diarrhea, sorry, you just can't go if you have diarrhea. And then we'd, go hike and go do all that and we still incorporate that into our lives today, My kids' attendance record, they had diarrhea several times this past year. So,
well, it's like you said, I mean, that's the important stuff, living life that way and doing the things that, not just that you're passionate about, but things that really spark that part of you inside where you feel that love and that compassion and that zest for life and the relationships that you have.
Exactly. Like, I love life. I have joy emanate and light from my heart. And each day I'm so grateful because look at all those people who would give anything to be able to have a life or have a quality of life that so many of us have that are so blessed.
Yeah.
And, I think that's what motivates me. I never ran before. I hated to run, and then Clint got sick and I looked at him on the couch and he was, into baseball, very into being physically fit, taking care of his body. And then to be thrown into this, tsunami where you have no control over the physical aspect of being able to go to the gym and, do the things that he loved. And, seeing him go through that, it was just such an inspiration to me to be like, you know what? If he can, he ran a marathon every day of his life trying to stay alive.
Yeah.
And in that, I started to run and ran, I've ran several half marathons and a couple marathons. And there's no way I would have ever done that had I not had a front row seat to seeing somebody suffer and would do anything to have that opportunity that so many of us have that we
take for granted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, the amazing gifts, I think when you're dealt with a hard situation, and like one of my very favorite quotes is, I think it's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, a book. And he says, between action and reaction, there's a pause. And there's power in that pause. And that has stuck with me for years. Because people just think, someone cuts you off, so you have to flip them off. Someone does this, so you have to do this. We live in such a reactive society that people just think, well, they did that, so I have to do this. No, you don't. Like, oh, well, this bad thing happened, so now I have to be depressed. But, we had to get really good at, okay, there's a pause. And then in that pause is so much power to choose your reaction. And we were, so blessed to be able to, how many people get an opportunity, if you look at it as an opportunity, to be able to have your life clearly defined as to what matters, what doesn't. What am I going to have time for in my life? What am I not going to worry about? And I wouldn't, I would do anything to have Clint back. I would love to have him back. Seeing him suffer near the end, Facebook does like see what happened last year, this day, last year.
It pops up on the memories from last year.
Yeah, and each day, now, every day I hold my breath in the morning when I look at that because, this is the final countdown for him. And it was ugly, it was hard, it was horrible. And there were lots of really horrible days, and he suffered so much. That, each time I see one of those things pop up, I feel like I want to be so grateful that he doesn't have to endure that and live that anymore.
Yeah. Damn Facebook.
I know. Stay. More memories. And then, then it's like, I do want to remember that. I do want to share that and let people know, I don't want it just to be like, okay, he's gone, move forward. Don't think about it. It is painful. It hurts. But you know what? He was amazing, and I want to share his story in his life because it had inspired so many, and it still can. Yeah.
And it's also a good reminder, like you said, it is painful to remember some of those experiences and to see those experiences, because obviously you see that thing pop up on Facebook and then it just brings back the flood of memories surrounding that incident or that time. But it's also a good reminder, I think, too, to still be practicing that life of living in the now and in the present and in the moments and the joy behind everything. And you know what I mean?
We have fun. We dance in the parking lot, like me and my kids, we have, look, I don't care. Like one of my favorite phrases is why be normal when you can be awesome? Like, it's just, I let all the trivial stuff melt away. And it's like, no, even my little 4-year-old, 5 now, the other day's like, being wooed is awesome. Like, yeah, it is. Right on. I'm so doing good as a mom if my kids can think that.
For sure. This is a challenging question I want to ask you, okay? I know that when I say I know, I'm assuming, obviously, but I'm assuming that you wouldn't necessarily go back and change anything because of all the different aspects of kind of the beauty behind all of it. But are there things, or is there, whether it's one specific thing or a series of things that you kind of sit with and struggle with where you wish you would have done this different or had the opportunity to do that? Or does that make sense?
I do look at, like, going back, no. Like, I am so grateful. I don't have any regrets. I think we got, so many opportunities to say what needed to be said and to live how we wanted to live. Of course, I want all the time I could have with him. You know, I do regret that his life was cut so short. And the regret I do have is, you know, when, you know, what, Father's Day's in a couple days, you know, and my kids don't have their dad here, you know, daddy-daughter stuff. Niska doesn't have her dad here. And, you know, looking forward, that's where I get this, you know, the sadness. But then I immediately, you know, I'm an eternal optimist, much to my kids' disappointment sometimes. But then immediately I trained myself to put those thoughts in my head that, you know what, my kids are amazing. They're phenomenal. And they're going to be who they were meant to be because of what they had to go through.
Yes.
And they're going to be more compassionate and more loving and more understanding. And they're going to change the world because of Clint.
I totally agree.
And, you know, in that gives me hope. That gives me peace. That gives me faith that they're phenomenal. And they needed to go through that. You know, God, you know, like Gunnar, ever since Clint cancer came back, said, I want to grow up and be a cancer doctor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, well, he's 9 now and did that, you know, has said that for 5 years and still says that. Who knows? But what if he does grow up and becomes a cancer doctor? And, you know, and I was telling him the other day, because he's, you know, thinking, oh, I could do this. And what if I could invent this that could help this? And I'm just like, Gunnar, you couldn't save your dad, but you can save somebody else's dad. And one person can change the world.
I agree.
And I'm honored to be their mom. And I know they're going to do great things.
Yeah.
With Clint on the other side, inspiring them and helping them and having them look at their dad and see everything that he went through, you know, was so horrific. You know, when Niska said to me one time, you know, oh, if we did that, if daddy, you know, if we went through that, we could get through anything. It's like, boom, you are right. Like, for real. Like, they will look at, you know, oh, I got this big calculus test or whatever and be like, psh, I got this. You know, like, you kidding me? You know, I mean.
Do you think in life that there isn't anything now that you can't move through?
Nothing. Bring it on.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say that arrogantly, you know, to God in any way, but I know whatever comes our way, we will get through it.
Yeah.
If me and my family lived through this and can smile and have joy and happiness, anybody can get through anything and have joy and happiness still in their life. There's still always a choice. You have the choice. You don't have to be reacted upon. You can act upon and choose your own life. Choose your own pause in that moment and choose to create the life you want. You know, it's never going to be perfect. Just like, you know, that quote, you know, the fabulous roses you might not ever find. But look at all the little beautiful forget-me-nots you're passing by, you know, that you didn't pay attention to. And absolutely, I know 100% that, you know, our life is forever changed because of Clint. And I want to use that change to be good, not depressing, not defeating. But, you know, yeah, he passed away from cancer, but he beat cancer every day by how he lived.
Yeah.
And we will continue to beat cancer by how we live.
What are some of the biggest, I don't like the term, like the term life lesson doesn't kind of fit, but what are some of the biggest things that you learned and kind of took away from your relationship and your marriage and your bond with Clint? What were some of the biggest things that seeing him live the way he lived, what has that changed and done for you?
And from a marriage view, or
no, just from like,
oh, I know.
Like, what did you learn from your husband?
Oh man, what did I not learn? Tenacity, unrelenting. You don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
You can do things that are impossible. You can get through the unimaginable. I mean, every day him living and still smiling was a triumph. And I take that into my everyday life. I mean, when I work out, you know, it's like, what? No. You know, my body's saying no, but my mind's saying yes.
Yeah.
You can go past the limits and beyond. I saw him do that every day. And when you have a front row seat to that, you know that the mind is powerful.
Very much so.
And you can, if you believe it, you can make it happen. Obviously you need to prepare yourself and get to a place where opportunity meets preparation equals success. But if you believe, it will happen. And, I think that's one of the biggest things that I learned from watching him was that you can do, the mind is so much more powerful than the body.
Yeah. That was one of my favorite things. The softball tournament that they did for Clint that was out here in Tooele County. I don't remember if that was the summer. I don't know if that was last summer or 2 years ago.
I think it was 2.
Okay. And
maybe 3.
I loved watching Clint play because it was so funny. I mean, all of us, all these guys that we grew up with, all these guys that we played ball with together and things like that, everybody came out to support Clint. Everybody came out to play and everything like that. And everybody's like, going bald and we're all fat and we're all lazy and we can barely round the bases and we definitely aren't playing ball like we used to play. But I loved the fact that Clint just kind of showed everybody up. He was still out there playing like he did when he was in high school.
He was so sick after that too.
Yeah, but I loved that. I mean, it was so inspiring, but then also just like, man, I've got to get off my ass and do stuff because Clint's out here rocking it and I'm over there sitting on the bench breathing heavy. But that was so fun. That was such a good experience.
I remember the bishop calling or the bishop texting, I think, after surgery one evening and, hey, how's Clint doing? And I asked him, hey, the bishop wants to know how you're doing. And he just chuckles and he's like, well, tell him I just need a body transplant, So then I texted the bishop, yeah, hey, he just needs a body transplant. And the bishop texts back, well, what kind of body does he want? And so then I asked Clint, he goes, a 400-pound fat guy, something I can work with, and he was serious, like the challenge of losing weight. Hey, bring it on. He could mentally do anything despite what your body is telling you not to do. Mm-hmm. And then the bishop's like, well, maybe I should have asked you what kind of body does he want to transplant? And I'm like, yeah, I was going to say Thor, but 400-pound fat guy, whatever. Yeah. As long as they're both healthy, go with the fat guy, I guess. But yeah, it's just the fact that your mind is so powerful. And so many people, you have all these physical, mental challenges and, everybody's going through everybody's carrying their own cross, going through their own hurricane, their own problems. But I think, when you do take inspiration from people like Clint, it buoys you up and it just gives you the strength to get through your own.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to, and that's what I loved to write and express my feelings about him and our life and our struggle. And hopefully, I know it's resonated with hearts around the world and it's helped, countless times. We got the feedback that it helps other people. And, I think for a man, having him to go so many years, without even working, he just felt like defeated, what am I doing? I'm not even providing for my family. I'm just making stress for my family. Mm-hmm. I'm just sitting here creating worry and I'm useless. He got to places like that where he felt that what good is he doing at all? He's not doing anything. And that's when I think it was so, one time I was like, hey, Clint's not feeling good, calling out all jokes around the world, and, people were submitting, jokes and funny things. And we sat there and I laid, by him in bed at night and changing his bandages and the kids squirting out his drains, and, oh, this is awesome. Look how much blood I got out of this one. And, and reading people's comments and, on those times where he was down, I was able to be like, baby, are you kidding me? What do? You are a freaking rock star. Like, look at all these people, and then I would pull it up and read comments and messages that, oh man, thank you. You helped me get through this, or you helped me get through that, and you're an inspiration. And then that helped buoy up his heart as well, to be like, okay, I have a purpose, and to have that social platform, was a way that it really transformed his life too, to see that, what, it's not just one rock, it's a rock that gets dropped in a pond and creates a ripple that affects a nation, that affects a world.
So it kind of benefited him, obviously, and helped him through it. See, that's beautiful. That's the energy exchange. That's the part that I really, really like. If you can, talk about some of the ways that you still feel connected to him, or that you still feel him present in your life today.
You're going there. Let's see. I'm kind of mad. I think I'm in that stage where I'm like, I'm mad. So leave me alone. And I know it's irrational, but Niska had a dance recital that they work all year long on these 3 dances, and one of the dances was dedicated to Clint. And so the end of May was her recital, and I sat down and I just felt him. I'm here, baby. I'm here. I'm here, and I'm watching it. But I don't know. Emotionally, it's hard.
Yeah.
Give me one of those tissues. Emotionally, it is hard for me to, I don't know, putting it up. The reason why our life was so good is because we got really good at living in the moment, right? And to this day, being a widow, that helps me a lot. I don't, he's always in my heart, and he's there, and I love him forever. But it's like to live in the moment, I don't think about it. Like I don't want to sit there and
dwell on it.
No, I don't, because it makes me sad, and I get mad that he's not here, and then I get mad at him that he left. And I know it's irrational. I know. The end hospice. The hospice nurse. She said, in 48 years, I've never seen somebody fight so hard to stay alive. Like I know he wanted to be here, and he fought like hell, to his last breath. But it still doesn't take away the fact that I'm mad. Yeah.
Do you see? I know that it's because he passed away last September. So what are we at? Like, I have to do the math in my head. What's that? Like 10 months or something like that. I'm terrible at math in my head on the moment.
You're special.
9 months. Has it gotten easier in any way, shape, or form, even just subtly or slightly?
Living without him? So I think right from the get-go, it was devastating, but he was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And our whole life revolved around he was the gravity. So I guess it selfishly, it was, wow, what are we going to do? Like I'm not the 24/7 nurse, know? So it's been really weird, like a big hole in your universe, when like your whole purpose is all of a sudden gone.
Yeah.
And then, I've really been trying to put myself and my kids on the list, really trying to, okay, I've lost, I want to say like 30 pounds or something since he passed away, but that's not my goal. But my goal is to balance my life and being able to put myself back on my list. And I know Clint loves that.
Yeah.
And I know he celebrates and relishes in every victory we have for ourselves.
Do you remember when I came and visited with you guys in the hospital? It was after a surgery. It was probably like in February or March. I guess it would have been last year. Anyways, do you remember when I came and visited you guys in the hospital?
You're unforgettable.
But I was excited to come work with Clint and meet with him and talk with him. And I had this big idea in my head going into it that I was going to do some energy work on him and things like that, because I had all this.
And instead he worked on
practice.
you.
Yeah. But then I also talked with you and kind of worked with you a little bit in that space. And I remember that very clearly and very, very well. But I remember telling you it was really important to spend time focused on yourself and yourself alone. And do you know what I mean? Because he obviously did take up copious amounts of your time. And it was really important. And I know that he wanted that.
Yeah.
And that was important to him as well.
My biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
My biggest fan.
So it's cool that you get to do it now.
Yeah.
It's cool that you get, not only that you get to do it, but that you are doing it and that you're kind of aware of it. And just bringing awareness to it, I think, is really, really important.
And that I have the capability to do that, to have a body that can run, you know. I mean, why run 5 when you can run 10?
Yeah.
You know, that's what 2 nights ago, you know, I went out and it's just like, I don't know. I think I have I am crazy, you know, like where it's just like, I know I can do whatever I put my mind to.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm going to go run 10 miles. Okay.
I know recently too, I saw this pop up on Facebook that you went back to, you have to help me because it's the foundation that you guys were involved in.
Oh, yeah.
That you got to go back to, they have a thing in Colorado, right?
Yeah. So there's a foundation, epicexperience.org, which is an amazing foundation that provides a week-long adventure camp for adult cancer thrivers. And a couple years ago, I signed Clint up. And I was like, baby, you're going to cancer camp. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, you're going to camp. And he was like, oh my gosh.
He's got a summer camp.
Whatever. Totally. So he went and they kayaked and they just do all these past crazy adventurous things that people in regular life and regular health would not do. And he came back and his cup was running over. He was so inspired. And, you know, with foundations like that, it helped him live his best life. And, you know, he came home renewed and rejuvenated and, you know, they forever helped change the fabric of our lives. And yeah, so, you know, then I went and volunteered for a week. Clinton, about 6 months later, and then our kids and I, because the owners of the foundation, we immediately adopted into our family. You know, we went out several times with the kids and helped, you know, at events and stuff like that they had, and speak at different things for them. And so then they'd asked me a couple months ago if would I come and volunteer at one of their camps. And it was difficult. It was hard.
I was wondering like what it would be like to go back and have that experience without him.
Yeah, so I pulled up to the ranch, and it's in the top of the Colorado Rockies, at this like $4 million ranch. And so you pull up, and I just started to cry. You know, and I tell my kids, I don't want them to feel like they can't cry. Like each tear is a drop of love.
Yeah.
But I just don't like to shed out so many drops of love all the time. So, but no, I pulled up and just started to cry, and was like, I think the gravity of the week just hit me and was like, oh, this is going to be hard.
Yeah.
You know, and it was. And it wasn't, you know, it was a way for me to give back. I didn't need camp. You know, like I knew it was going to be something I would have been a lot better off to, if I was selfish, you know, just stay home and go throughout my regular routine and not go there.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you do small groups in the morning. It's not like a week of therapy at all, but you do small groups in the morning and you have an hour, you know, and I knew I was leading one of the small groups. So we have, you know, we all have masks. Why, you know, like just a thought for each day. And I was leading, you know, co-leading those with an amazing man, and that's a cancer survivor, and that had been last year and came back to volunteer as well. So him and I team led those throughout the week, but, you know, it was difficult. It is, you know, when I talk about living in the moment and then having to think, crap, you know, have every moment now revolve around the devastation and the gravity of what we had to go through.
Yeah.
It was uncomfortable. It would have been a lot easier for me to have not gone. But that's not what life's about. Life's about sharing your story and your light and helping others.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully I was able to, that week help other people see that you can still have joy and happiness amidst the worst outcome.
For sure. Thank you, Kamille. I think that I probably could sit here and talk to you for another 3 hours. And I absolutely
Part
love
2.
Tell me again the Facebook page so people can go and find you and follow you and keep up and go back, because all this stuff is still on there from the past few years and the journey and everything, right?
Yep. It's ClintTheCancerWarrior.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then his Facebook, we turned into Clint the Cancer Warrior Family.
Okay. And we'll have links to that and everything when the show goes up. Is there anything else that you'd like to share, or any kind of last parting words that you'd like to throw out there, considering you're reaching people all across the planet?
Yeah. Each day's a gift. And if you choose to view it as that, you're able to help so many people. And to the world, I love that quote, to the world, you might be, you're only one person, but to the world, you might be, what's that? One person, you might be the world.
Yeah.
And
you might
it's
be
like,
the person to one, or you might be the world to
you
one
might be
person.
the world to one person. And it's like, if what you're going through, if you want to share it and help other people, that's what it's about, is to help each other get through life, because it's hard and ugly at times, but we can make it through together if we rely on each other's light and love.
Yeah. And there's beauty in the small moments and being present.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much. It's so beautiful. Thank you, Niska. Thank you for being patient and sitting down, bearing with your mom here and me. Thank you so much. And I hope everybody enjoyed this episode. Like I said, it was really special for me, and it was such a blessing to be able to sit down and chat with Kamille. So thank you so much. And
It's an honor to talk about my dream man.
Go find her, go follow her on Facebook, go find all this stuff out there, because the more you can learn about Clint and his story, I guarantee you're going to benefit from it. So everybody go out and have a beautiful, wonderful day, and be present in all moments as you move through life. But thank you very much.
All the small crap falls away. The Hulk. And Clint would say, hey, I'm not going anywhere today, and I'm not going anywhere tomorrow. So let's have fun. You can have cancer and be happy.